Today on Morad Media, I will share with the viewers why I protested the jury duty summons on February 18, 2009, and I just protested the second notice of summons for February 13, 2011. I have sent a letter to the Commissioner of the Jury on February 2010 why I will not appear to the court, and gave them a full explanation and documentation listing 10 judges that the fact the court system is corrupted with corrupt judges. I'm a victim to those corrupt judges. I have lost 30 years of hard work. I own 276 units of Section 8 housing in the city of Boston. It was taken away by the governmental entities and by the Jewish developers. And this case was strictly political, was never about law. As you would see, as I will direct you to the www.uscorruptjudges.com. On the first picture, you can see Judge Maria Lopez. She allowed a fraudulent foreclosure on a fraudulent note. She had no jurisdiction on this case, and prior to her taking on that case, there was an injunction issued by Judge Catherine White. She overruled the injunction. She allowed perjury. She allowed fraud. Did not give me a payoff on the note. And she allowed 276 units to go into a foreclosure, which will jeopardize 1,500 African American and Hispanic residents, because under the foreclosure we have an excise tax and agreement for 40 years to protect affordability. Once the property goes into a foreclosure, then that's the only way the private developers could take over the development on auction and convert into condominium, and the tenants will lose out. I will lose over $20–30 million, and that was the scam of the Jewish developers, that they had an agenda for Boston to take over those units, take over the 6.5 acres of land, and they in the process rebuilding their own gentrified city annexed to City Hall, maximizing land value and generating income at the expense of minority. After Judge Lopez, I had an attorney who said, let's go and move this case to another judge. Then Judge Berlock, he was the residing judge on this case of foreclosure. My attorney said, let's get a payoff of the foreclosure and send that check to the junior mortgageur's attorney. We did. The payoff was only $13,500. The certified check was sent by my attorney and was returned back. Judge Berlock, he did not allow us to introduce the payoff figure. He allowed a fraudulent documentation in front of him. He did not address the concern under foreclosure of 1,500 African American residents and Hispanic. They will be displaced out in the street, and he's an African American judge. And in the prior cases, Judge Berlock recused himself to sit on my company, V&M Management, because his wife was the head of the criminal investigation, and the Attorney General Scott Hochberger and his team, they said Morad is under investigation. It's ironically that day in a small chamber, little court, no one there, that Judge Berlock delivered a favor and dismantled his own community. Shame on you, Judge. This is why we're building more jails, and that's why we have more crimes in the African American neighborhoods, because judges like you, they are serving their master. I call it legalized slavery. You're not a free judge. That's what you are. Second, after Judge Berlock, I had to seek refuge. and I had my attorney filed bankruptcy documentation in bankruptcy court, and the judge was deciding on that case was Judge Carol Kenner. She's a chief judge. And my attorney told me his Lebanese client, she destroyed him. She doesn't like Middle Easterners, and we're going to have a problem with that judge. Sure enough, she did not give us the right time to even address the foreclosure issue, why we filed for bankruptcy. When then the governmental entities, the Boston Development Authority, the Department of Revenue, the state, the city, the BRA, they all came in and they asked for receivership and take the key away and kick Morad out of there. Sure enough, they waited 10 years for that. She gave them what they wanted, and they took over the property. Now the judge appointed a trustee. The trustee within 30 days comes up with an appraisal of $100,000 for 276 units that generates almost $3 million income a year. Within 60 days, I came in with $5.5 million offer on the table to satisfy the creditor to take my property back. Would you believe? Judge Kenner refused to entertain $5.5 million, and she was silent for 8 months, trying to figure a way how we're going to get rid of Al Morad and keep the property in receivership and turn it over to the Jewish developers. Judge Carol Kenner, for me to file motions in the bankruptcy court, I had to become a pro se because nobody wants to go against the governmental entities and the bankruptcy judge. So therefore, she barred me out of the bankruptcy court for no reason, no hearing, no trial, because she does not want to see my face ever appearing in the court. I have filed recusal on her, I have filed impeachment on her, and I have filed a change of venue to remove this case out of her court. At the end, she was going to dismiss the bankruptcy case, and there was 6 motions in front of her, and she refused to rule on them because she did not want me to appeal it. I had to file an emergency motion that I would not leave the court that day, and I would go to prison till she rules on my motion. The U.S. Marshal came over, says, "What do you want, Mr. Morad?" I said, "All I want is a ruling to reserve my appeal. I have a right for an appeal. I owe taxes that I never received the funds for it." So the U.S. Marshal spoke to Judge Kenner, and they told me that she will give me a ruling on the motions within 6 weeks, which she did. So I filed those appeals, and I have won one of them. And one of the appeals basically is who's responsible to pay the taxes on the profit the trustee kept, and who is the owner of the property. What Judge Kenner did on the confirmation plan, she appointed the trustee to step in my shoes and to become the owner and apply for $12 million tax credit, and he formed a limited partnership with Beacon Residential Property, Howard Cohen, and this group, and then he got my tax credits belong to me, and then he gave it to Beacon Residential Property. On top of that, he made $3 million in the sale. So the argument in front of all the judges, you're going to see the rest of them, is basically define ownership. If I was kicked out, I'm no longer the owner, then why am I responsible today for $800,000 of taxes for $3 million of income the trustee pocketed? He's the owner. What do you want from me? If I am the owner, then give me back my tax credit, which is only belong to Al Morad, because you have to have 10 years of ownership to qualify. The trustee could not qualify. Beacon Residential Property could not qualify. And then I have plenty of money to pay the IRS. I want to be a partner with the BRS. I want to pay the IRS. But sure enough, all the judges, the rest of them on the pictures, Judge Rao and Judge Torello, Judge Lynch, and Judge Coffin, and Judge Gale, and there's so many of them. Would you believe they all did not address the ownership? None of the judges asked one question. Where's the money? Did Mr. Morad receive the $3 million profit? What happened to it? they were all very silent because they understood they had to cover up. I don't mind them covering up, but I do mind, and you can hear the appeal oral argument on the front page of the WWS Corrupt Judges, MP3, when the IRS attorney intentionally, deliberately lied to the appeal judges and said to them, the buyer applied for the tax credit in 1998 and not V&M Management applied for it on Alphonse Morad in 1997. And my attorney, at the end of this oral argument, you can hear him saying, Your Honor, I disagree. It's the trustee who applied in 97, and he qualified and turned the tax credit to Beacon residential property. That was part of the exhibit from these three corrupt judges. In the meantime, Judge Lynch, you can hear saying, well, look at the record. Judge Lynch never looked at the record. I filed a motion for reconsideration. She gave me one word, denied. In the meantime, I have filed complaints on Judge Torello. I have filed complaint on Judge Carol Kenner. They ruled before me when I filed a lawsuit against my attorney and the trustee, the same judges. They must have poor memory. They dismissed the case, the fact I don't have a standing. But all of a sudden, I have a standing to be an owner and pay the money. So consider my physical health, and considering that I'm in poor health, I'm taking a lot of medication for my heart. You can see under Morad arrest, the argo regarding my health when the U.S. attorney asked for 3 years probation, I refused to accept it, and I said I will accept 6 months incarceration. Will be less pressure on my physical health and will prevent a heart attack because I rate on the high level of a stroke. And the judge acknowledged that, and he just basically knew. He denied me, he squashed the subpoena for Judge Carol Kenner. He knew I was innocent, but he had to cover up. And he said, Morad, walk out paying $10. It's ridiculous. He couldn't sleep with his conscience, Judge Lindsay. So now the commission expects me to be an obeying citizen and go ahead and serve in the jury. They're going to have to arrest me because I'm going to get this case out publicly. I'm going to make a scene. The fact is, this case should set precedents for the Middle East. Because what they say in this case, that ownership appointed or taken over by terrorists like the West Bank and Gaza, it's illegal. The original owners are the Palestinians. So basically what these judges had set precedents, today the Palestinians are responsible to pay the taxes on the land that has been taken away since 1987 till now, including Israel, that they owe the taxes on their land. Because the judges here clearly said, we don't acknowledge the takeover. We did not acknowledge Judge Kenner appointing the trustee takeover. So therefore in the Middle East, this should set precedents to all the legal institutions and the United Nations that the Jewish Zionists take over in Gaza, the West Bank, and originally in Israel. It's illegal, according to 8 federal judges. We have a case here that I will demonstrate separately to the Middle East. So now the only way I'm going to show up to the court, they're going to have to get a doctor on board. They have to get an attorney. I will stay outside the courtroom. I cannot walk in that courtroom because if I walk in it, just like taking a citizen Jew, he was in the Holocaust at the age of 65 and taking him back to his cell and saying, I want you to go back and remember the torture that you have gone under. Could you remember? And at that age, that person could basically die. And this is what the jury commissioner and the courts and the Democratic Party wants. Maybe someone there wants revenge. The Jewish take over right now, Howard Cohen and his group. They want me to go in. I'm in the process of denouncing my citizenship. I said to the commissioner before, I'm leaving within, hopefully this year, 2011. Get out of my case. You robbed me enough. Enough is enough. Goodbye.